Move, I said, gripping my interview folder so hard the corners bent. My father didn't move. He stood in front of the door in his pressed blue shirt, already dressed for my sister's birthday lunch, my car keys hanging from one finger like he had earned them. Your sister's babysitter cancelled, he said. You're watching the kids. My phone buzzed in my blazer pocket. Final panel interview, 9:30 a.m. I looked past him at the driveway, at the car I paid insurance on but somehow still had to ask permission to use. Dad, this is the final interview. If I get this job, everything changes. From the kitchen, my mother laughed without looking up from her coffee. People like you don't get careers, Maya. You get responsibilities. Then my sister Sophie walked in, sunglasses on her head, toddler on her hip, and dropped a diaper bag at my feet. Lunch is prepaid, she said. Don't make this about you. That was the moment something in me went quiet. I was 29 years old, wearing a second-hand blazer I had steamed in the bathroom because the iron was broken. Inside my folder were 3 copies of my resume, my operations proposal, and every note I had stayed up all night preparing while Sophie texted me pictures of birthday outfits. For years I had been the dependable daughter, the one who picked up prescriptions, watched children, cancelled plans, covered shifts at my father's small logistics office when someone quit, and still got called selfish for wanting a paycheck that did not come with family strings. I'm not babysitting today, I said. My mother finally looked up. Then who's going to? I stared at her, their mother. Sophie gasped like I had slapped her. Dad's expression hardened. You can leave after your sister gets back. That was when I noticed his eyes drop to the company name printed on my folder. He recognized it. Not vaguely, not casually. His face changed for half a second, then he looked away too fast. Why are you looking at that? I asked. He held out his hand. Give me the folder. No. The toddler started crying. Sophie shoved the diaper bag closer with her shoe. I stepped over it. Dad reached for my arm, but I was already moving through the kitchen, past my mother's chair into the garage. I left without my car keys, walked 3 blocks in heels to the bus stop, and did not answer when my phone started exploding with calls. As the bus pulled away, a voicemail appeared from an unknown number. The caller ID showed the company. I pressed play. Miss Ellis, the recruiter said carefully, we received a concerning call about you this morning. I listened to the voicemail 3 times on the sidewalk, outside the company building. People in suits moved around me, coffee cups in hand, badges clipped to their jackets, all of them looking like they belonged in the life I was trying to reach. The recruiter's voice stayed careful. We still expect you at the interview, Miss Ellis, but before the panel begins, we may need to clarify a personal reference concern. A personal reference? I had not given them my father's name. I turned my phone over in my hand and saw 17 missed calls from my mother, 9 from Sophie, and 1 text from Dad. Come home now. I deleted none of them, I just walked inside. The interview room had glass walls, a long table, and 4 people waiting with copies of my resume. My mouth felt dry, but when they asked about warehouse delays, vendor bottlenecks, and route inefficiencies, I answered from memory. Those problems were familiar. I had spent years fixing them quietly in my father's office while he called it helping out. Then I presented my proposal. One panelist, a woman named Evelyn Hart, barely looked down at the paper. She watched me instead, calm and unreadable. After the interview, as the others shook my hand and left, Evelyn stayed behind. Miss Ellis, she said, are you related to Richard Ellis? My stomach dropped. He's my father. She nodded once, like that confirmed something she already knew. Then she said, you should know, some people mistake control for concern. I wanted to ask what he had said, but she opened the door before I could. When I got home, I expected shouting. Instead, the house was quiet. Sophie was at the kitchen counter scrolling on her phone. Mom was feeding the kids crackers like nothing had happened. Dad sat at the dining table. My folder was open in front of him. You went through my room, I said. Dad tapped 1 finger on my resume. The company called me. I was protecting them from making a mistake. Mom sighed. You embarrassed this family today. Sophie didn't even look up. My birthday lunch was ruined because the kids cried the whole time. I looked at my father. What did you tell them? He leaned back. The truth. But he did not say what the truth was. Then he gave me the choice he had probably planned before I ever left. Apologize to your sister. Drop this career nonsense. You can work for me full-time at the office where I can keep an eye on you, or pack your things by the weekend. For the first time, I did not argue. I went upstairs, pulled one suitcase from the closet, and packed only what I could carry. My mother stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. You'll be back, she said. I zipped the suitcase. No, I said, I won't. That night, I slept on my friend Lena's couch with my blazer folded under my head and my phone on the floor beside me. At 6:12 the next morning, it lit up. An email from the company. I opened it expecting the rejection my father had tried to arrange. The first line said, Offer of employment. I accepted the offer before anyone in my family knew I had survived the interview. For the first month, I slept on Lena's couch, took 2 buses to work, and kept my clothes in a borrowed laundry basket beside her bookshelf. I did not tell my parents where I was staying. I did not tell Sophie my schedule. I did not give anyone a spare key to my new life. The job was hard. But hard was different when it paid me, respected me, and ended at 5:30. My manager gave me routing problems. I solved them. A warehouse supervisor pushed back on a new tracking system. I stayed late, mapped the issue, and fixed the rollout. Every crisis felt strangely familiar, except now no one called it being difficult when I had an answer. 6 months later, I saw my family again at my cousin Rachel's wedding. I arrived quietly, wearing a navy dress I bought with my own paycheck. No one had to approve it. No one had to lend me the money and remind me forever. Sophie spotted me near the seating chart. Well, look at you, she said loudly enough for 3 aunts to turn. Is your little office job still letting you pretend you're important? Mom appeared beside her almost instantly, smiling with her teeth. Maya abandoned her nieces over a job, she told Aunt Carol. But I suppose some people need to learn priorities the hard way. Dad joined them last, calm and wounded, like he had rehearsed the expression. She left because she couldn't handle basic family expectations, he said. We tried to help her, she chose pride. The table went quiet in that familiar way, where everyone waited to see whether I would shrink. Then a man near the bar turned around. Maya Ellis, he asked, you're the one from Hartwell Logistics, right? Dad's smile stiffened. The man walked over, holding his drink. I saw your name on that distribution center redesign. Saved them, what, a couple million in regional losses. My aunt blinked. Sophie stopped smiling. I said it was a team project. Still, he said, impressive work. Dad's hand closed around my elbow a minute later near the hallway. Stop using the Ellis name professionally, he said under his breath. I looked down at his hand until he let go. You don't get to claim it at weddings and ban it at work, I said. His face changed, not angry first, afraid. You're creating confusion with my business reputation. That sentence told me more than he meant to reveal. A week later, Evelyn confirmed it in her office. Your father worked with people here years ago, she said, and not everyone remembers him fondly. When contracts failed, blame had a habit of landing on whoever had the least power. So that was why he panicked. Not because I had embarrassed him, because I had entered the same industry where he had spent years controlling the story. I did not expose him then, I did something quieter. I changed my professional name to Maya Ellis Hartman, using my grandmother's maiden name, and kept moving upward until the old family noise became background static. Years later, after I was promoted to Director of Integration, Evelyn walked into my office with a transition file from a failing logistics firm our company had just acquired. She placed it on my desk and said, You need to read the employee list before anyone else does. I opened the transition file with Evelyn still standing across from me. The first page listed departments. The second listed leadership. Halfway down the third page, I saw a name I had not spoken out loud in years. Richard Ellis, Senior Operations Manager. Not owner. Not consultant. Not the untouchable man who used to sit at the head of our dining table, deciding which parts of my life were allowed to matter. Employee. I looked up at Evelyn's. Our acquisition absorbed his company, I asked. The company he worked for, she said. Not owned, worked for. That detail landed harder than I expected. For years my father had talked like every contract, every warehouse, every delivery route existed because of him. But the file showed debt, failed compliance checks, vendor disputes, and a leadership team being reviewed department by department. Evelyn folded her hands. The conflict is already documented. You won't make any final ethics decision alone, but his department reports through integration until the review is complete. 2 days later, I walked into the all-hands meeting before the acquired staff arrived. My nameplate was already on the table. Maya Ellis Hartman, Director of Integration. Richard entered with a group of managers, laughing at something one of them said. Then he saw me. For one clean second his face emptied. He recovered quickly and smiled like cameras were watching. Maya, he said, warm and fatherly. Every executive at the table looked at me. I opened the file in front of me. Director Hartman is fine for this meeting. The room shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just enough. Employees glanced at Richard, then back at me. Richard noticed them noticing, and the old certainty in his posture cracked. During the review, I found patterns I recognized immediately. Missing approvals, delayed reports, notes blaming unreliable junior staff, vendor issues described vaguely until responsibility vanished into someone else's name. Then, buried in archived correspondence, I found an email chain from 8 years earlier between Richard and a former executive at my company. I printed it. I did not read every line yet. I did not need to. The subject alone made my pulse slow. Maya Ellis interview concern. HR scheduled Richard's formal review the next morning and asked me to attend as operational lead. Outside the conference room, Richard stepped close enough that no one else could hear. Family matters should stay buried, he whispered. I looked at him, holding the folder against my side. Then I walked past him into the room. When he entered, I placed the printed email chain on the table. Before Richard could sit down, the HR director closed the door and said, Mr. Ellis, this meeting is no longer about the acquisition. The HR director opened the folder first. Not mine. Hers. That was when I realized this meeting had been building long, before I walked in with the printed email chain. Mr. Ellis, she said, we're going to review several documents with you today. Some relate to the acquisition, some relate to prior contact you had with this company. Richard gave a short laugh. Prior contact, I've worked with half the people in this industry. Evelyn sat beside me, silent, watching him the same way she had watched me 8 years earlier. The HR director slid the first page across the table. It was a call log dated the morning of my final interview. Then came the email. Maya Ellis interview concern. Richard's face changed before he finished reading the subject line. He leaned back. That was a family issue. No, the HR director said. It was a hiring interference issue. The email was worse than I had imagined. My father had contacted a former colleague at the company before I ever reached the building. He wrote that I was unstable under pressure, resentful of family duties, irresponsible with children, and likely to abandon commitments when things became difficult. He called himself a concerned father. He said he was protecting the company from a mistake. I sat very still while the words turned a memory into evidence. The voicemail, Evelyn's question, my father sitting at the dining table with my folder open, my mother saying people like me did not get careers, Sophie dropping the diaper bag at my feet like my future was something to step around. It had never been only about babysitting. He had tried to poison the door before I reached it. Richard pointed at the paper. I told them what I believed at the time. Evelyn finally spoke. You told us a story we had heard from you before, she said. Years earlier, when projects failed under your supervision, The blame somehow landed on junior employees, assistants, coordinators, people with less authority than you. Richard's jaw tightened. Evelyn continued, "That is why I did not reject Maya. I asked harder questions. I watched how she handled pressure. Your call told me far more about you than it did about her." The HR director moved to the acquisition records next. Vendor approvals missing. Compliance reports delayed. Internal notes edited after problems surfaced. Repeated language about unreliable staff, poor follow-through, communication failures. Different people, same pattern. The legal representative at the end of the table spoke calmly. "We are not making dramatic claims in this room, but we have documented misconduct, misrepresentation during integration, and financial negligence significant enough to terminate employment for cause. Several vendor discrepancies are being referred for outside review." For the first time in my life, my father had no room to control the story. So he reached for the only weapon he had left. He looked at me. "You're really going to sit there," he said. "After everything I did for you, I raised you." I took the voicemail transcript from my folder and slid it across the table. My voice did not shake. "You stopped being my father in every room where you used that title to trap me." No one spoke for a moment. Richard looked down at the transcript, then away. By the end of the day, his access badge was disabled. Security did not drag him out. No one shouted. He packed the framed certificates from his temporary office into a cardboard box while employees pretended not to stare. That was somehow worse for him. He had built his life on being feared at the head of the table. Now he was just a terminated manager carrying his own box. My mother called that night. "You need to fix this," she said, voice sharp but thinner than I remembered. "Your father has no severance, no reference. Do you understand what this does to us?" "Yes," I said, "I do." Then I ended the calls. Sophie called 12 minutes later. "Maya, please," she said. "Dad was helping with the mortgage, and childcare is impossible right now. Can't you make this go away quietly?" I looked across my apartment at the blazer hanging on the back of my chair, the newer one I had bought for myself after my promotion. "No," I said, "ask the children's mother." Then I ended that call too. The fallout moved through the family faster than any apology ever had. Relatives who watched them shame me at Rachel's wedding sent careful messages. Some claimed they had always known I was capable. Some asked what really happened. Some said nothing at all because silence was easier than admitting they had helped keep me small. Richard lost his job, his reputation, and the version of authority that only worked when people were afraid to question him. Linda lost the power to speak for the family without anyone answering back. Sophie lost the safety net that had let her treat my life like spare time. And I remained Director Hartman. Every morning, I walked into an office overlooking the same downtown streets I once crossed by bus, holding a second-hand folder and wondering whether my father had already ruined my future. He had not. He had only revealed exactly why I needed one without him. 8 years after my father blocked the door to stop my future, he sat on the other side of my desk and learned I had become the door.